Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with our weekly, or almost weekly, because we missed last week, P&Q&C&A&T. This is season 6, episode 16. Before we start, as we have started to do now, we're going to run through what all those different letters mean, because this is what started out as basically just a fun joke to us, but it is actually the title of our videos, so we should probably explain it for anybody.
And remember and learn what they mean, and recap it enough so that we get the letters right.
That's true. Okay, so P is podcast. This exists in podcast form as well as a video form, and if you check the link in the description, if you're on the video form, you can access this in podcast form on most, if not all, of the major podcasting platforms.
And it's funny because P also is for the patrons on Patreon that let us do this, because we're giving up revenue by putting up on a podcast as opposed to YouTube, which has ad revenue.
That's true. Q is for questions. This started as a sort of stock standard Q&A, and mostly we still are answering questions that are asked on the comments of our YouTube videos. So that's also, if you're wondering how to get a question or comment on here, that's what you do. You just leave a comment on your videos.
Right. A is for answers, because we always have lots of answers. We like to talk. Yeah. I don't know if they're any good, but you get what you get.
C is for comments. We're going back one now because.
Did I skip? I see. I got the letters wrong.
You did skip C. That's okay. C is for comments, because sometimes it's not a question, but we still want to talk about it anyways. And there's a corresponding T. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, for talking, because sometimes we just ramble on. It's the question or comment is the starting off point, but we end up getting right into the weeds.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just like to mention things that maybe I learned or that came up over last week.
Yeah.
And last week, what did you learn?
Last week, well, I relearned a lot of calculus, because I had a calculus exam on the Wednesday, and so I figured that filming a full video on the Tuesday might not be the most sort of prudent choice.
Not great prioritizing.
Yeah, so I decided that getting a slightly better mark in calculus, we mentioned this in our recap, was probably worth missing a week. And I don't know if other people would agree with me, but so in the time that I would have otherwise been studying, when I would have otherwise been making this video, I was studying for calculus and maybe making one of the world's smallest cheat sheets, because we were allowed to take stuff into the exam, and I think it was meant to not be usable for a significant amount of information. I think it was meant to be sort of limiting the amount of stuff you could put on it, so that you had to pick and choose. But
you showed them.
Yeah, it was, because it's 4 centimeters by 8 centimeters, and for anybody who doesn't have context, that's very, very small. Like it's
an index card.
It's shockingly small when you get down to it. Index cards are much bigger. Index cards are in the scale of inches. So I think calling it an index card would be maybe generous, yeah. But I managed to fit I'm going to call a significant amount of information on it, and I don't know if I'm going to remember to do this or not, but maybe if you poke around in the description or the comments or somewhere, you might be able to find a picture if I remember to take a picture and upload this for when the video comes out, because it really, you don't get a sense of it until you see just how small it is. But I managed to cram an absolute insane amount of information on it, and I think I actually had most of the information necessary to write the test written on this 4 by 8 centimeter card, double-sided. So that's the thing.
But you did well. It was worth it. You did well.
I mean, I hope I did well. I'm hopeful that I did well, and I think I did probably pretty well. So we'll have to wait and see when I actually get the marks back. I guess.
Well, fingers crossed.
Yeah. And
you know what else we learned this week?
Yeah, we learned something else. What else?
That's probably not widely applicable to anything else, but we learned how to pronounce Ivailo Kolev.
And it is
he was actually
like
good enough. Yeah, he was actually good enough to make a video just for us, specifically to tell us how to pronounce his name.
Yeah, which was it was quite a nice surprise. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have a specific question, but this is the T that gives us an excuse to mention it, so I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's a funny kind of social media, right, where the interaction it involves a lot more work than, say, Twitter.
That was quite stilted. to try to get that back and forth.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, no, but it was really cool to receive that, and I was actually like kind of like excited to receive that. I was like, oh, awesome, right? We got a video.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of videos, actually, if you're watching the game, so this is one method of getting past the passive for the Catwoman. I believe this Batman Ninja was to use Wonder Woman to do a bunch of specials, and then bring our tank. Unfortunately, our tank still wasn't even good enough, and our tank actually got knocked out. But this is going to be our other method of and Shazam's got taking no damage, and his passive is gonna. Oh crap! His passive might outlast us.
Now, I think we should get to the questions for anybody who's listening in the podcast format, because unfortunately this is not going to be particularly engaging for them. But our first question of the week comes from Seiji Realm, or SEJI Realm, all one word, and the comment is short and sweet, to the point. With the glitches dead, things slowed down.
Yeah, and it's a little bit ambiguous. I'm going to assume that things slow down means our channel, because, you know, with the glitches, well, maybe it's the game. I mean, there's fewer people playing because of that.
We can sort of extrapolate and read into this question however we want.
Yeah, but, I mean, the players that have played and have had the glitches, unless they made a mistake and did not exploit them enough while they were there, should have enough resources or whatever to field a pretty good team and enjoy playing the way we do.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our channel. I mean, that's definitely a part of it. Yeah. Because we see huge drops in the audience and viewership when there's been a long time between when there's been a long time waiting for significant content. And sometimes that's an update, but even with the recent update, they introduced a bunch of cards that were really hard to get. They were all metals. It's not like you can buy them directly with power credits. And so access to them is a few steps removed from what you need to do. There's no Phantom Zone to get Nth Metal, so it's either buying Nth Metal with cash, which most players, I think, are not doing, or you got to rank high enough in a season to get them from multiplayer, and then you need to save enough to get an Nth Metal pack, and then hope that you get lucky.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stages, and it's quite a slow process. Yeah, so I think that there's definitely, like, just in terms of new content coming out, the game slowed down, but also in terms of getting the content, like the sort of solution, it seems, to putting less work in overall is just putting like really sort of artificial feeling, like restrictions on the speed that you can get new stuff.
Right.
Which is unfortunate.
Yeah, you compare that to when we had new character challenge characters, right? That's kind of redundant. I mean, you complete the challenge, you win a copy, you unlock the character for power credits, and you could have saved a bunch of power credits from before, so that as soon as you got them, you can, you get your 3 copies for getting up to Nightmare, and then you just need another 5, pay for another 5 to get them maxed out.
Yeah.
So, listen, for sure, when there's a new glitch, there's a huge bump in the number of views, but there hasn't been a great glitch for a while now. Yeah. And I'm curious, too, like, how much overlap there is between, our recap, which is mostly players in bigger numbers who want to know what's going on, and there's not a lot of us in it. Yeah. And then our weekly P&Q&C&A&T, which is mostly us and not a lot of, fresh content.
Although we have managed to inject an ever-increasing amount of us into our recap videos, evidently to the consternation of some people, which I think we'll get to in a later comment. I think some people have had quite enough of us, and when they click on our recap videos, they're like, I just want pure information. I'm not interested in any of this extra discussion of anything else that's not relevant to me and my wants from this video.
Yeah, and I think it would be a mistake for us at least to try to chase that viewer, like that sort of universal viewer, where everything that we do appeals to everybody. Yeah. That I just don't think that's possible. And I really don't want to put in that much work. I don't want to struggle that much. This is fun.
Yeah. This is a good. just gonna say right now, I know we're a few minutes in. If I seem scattered at all, or maybe unfocused, it is probably just because I'm still in the middle of exam season. So
yeah, hopefully they'll be done soon.
Yeah,
hopefully.
I mean, after this week Wednesday, I think things are gonna chill out for me a little bit.
I'm maybe not as rattled, but I'm in the middle of something too. I'm trying to take care of our taxes, like income tax for the year.
Yeah.
And the good news is, I think we're all getting tax refunds.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's fun. At least it makes it seem like you're doing work for money instead of just work.
I know. Technically, it's already our money anyways, right?
Yeah, but
because it was just overpaying
like
taxes. It feels better.
Money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the human mind. It's not very rational.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that'll be useful for my psychology exam next week. Yeah. Our next question comes from Aaron I, and they ask, without hacking or root, is there a way to get older gear? It makes online battles near impossible without all the powerful gear, even with maxed characters. Which, besides Survivor, is the main way to get that legendary gear?
So when we're talking about, I mean, again, a little bit of ambiguity about what older gear means, and right now I'm using air quotes around older. Because if we're talking older, but specifically non-gear locker legendary gears, multiplayer is still the best way. And the Survivor gears, actually, I don't think they're that important. The most important are League of Assassins knives, maybe 2 of the Fourth World gears for the revive value, although in my mind Necron's scythe is better. And Killer Croc companion gear, I mean, in this team that we've got right now, I think that's the only...
Yeah.
It might be the only Survivor gear that we're using.
Huh. That's true. Yeah, and I guess to the point about using, like, needing to use higher quality gear, we also have a team that we only used off the shelf gears that you could get with the gear locker.
Right. Yeah, and listen,
and
it's not nearly as easy.
Off the shelf team, wasn't it?
It was. We have a video with off the shelf where it's characters that you buy directly from the store and gears that you can only get through the gear locker. So the one exception to the non-legendary gears is the Razagul Scimitar.
Yeah, because you can get that in the gear locker at a very low % chance, I think.
And I think the question speaks a little bit to the fact that max promoting a team without gears, and it's a team that you want to use in multiplayer, it's a mistake. And a lot of people have made that mistake. I mean, max promote to get through offline play, sure. But make sure it's a team that you're not interested in playing online. Gear first, then you max your golds, because if you've got lower stat teams, you're going to get matchups that are less likely to have good team loadouts. And, you know, the gear is where you actually have an advantage or a disadvantage compared to the other team.
Yeah.
And that gives you a better chance. I mean, the more times, the better you're at MP in your matchups, the more likely you are to win. And like we were saying earlier, the legendary gears from multiplayer, I think, are the most important ones.
Yeah. I think, is that everything we want to say for that? Just about.
Yeah, I mean, the actual question was, without hacking root, is there a way to get older gear? Now there finally is. But with the exception of Survivor, no. I mean, realistically, I mean, you could get some of the legendary gears from the paid packs. That's not a practical way to really do it, because they're really priced out of... Oh, Shazam. I love this. So, sorry, the regular Shazam activated is passive in the fight, and he's not getting a chance to really use it. I love that.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
yep.
You've got the packs, but they're not really cost effective.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really, it's just waiting, biding your time, and looking at all the different sort of streams of content.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so our next question, or it's a question and some comments, but this was a quite good comment. I was happy to receive it. We've got a couple of those actually this episode. We've got a lot of positivity to sort of balance out the negative comments that we addressed in last episode, and this is a little bit of that. So this one comes from EST, and they say, I love these videos, always listen to them, interesting discussions. I think some people hate on you guys, or at least one of the people that commented, is because, as he said in the video, he/she wanted to find glitches. They probably have been searching for the last half an hour for a glitch that they want to find find that may not work and therefore are getting frustrated. Keep making more videos. I watch these P&Q&C&A&T videos all the time when I have spare time, and pretty much all your content is great. Notification Squad would have watched yesterday, but I had too much work to do. Question: I only get pop-up ads. Commenter has to watch ads. So this is a long comment, but I think it's quite a nice one. And I should say we appreciate receiving stuff like this. In case anybody commenting in response to those people is worried about like our self-esteem or anything when we're receiving
or mental
comments,
health,
or just in case they're doing it out of concern for us, I want to say we always appreciate these, but it's also important to note that we don't mind those comments. We find them quite entertaining actually, overall. And they very rarely veered to sort of constructive territory, but on the occasion that they do, that's also not a bad thing. So
I think it's a general attitude towards this. I think if we were more worried about making this a career, or we had more invested, or our identity was tied to having a successful YouTube channel,
it would matter more. So we always appreciate receiving comments like this, but if anybody's actually worried, you don't need to worry about us. We have pretty thick skin for stuff like this. And honestly, I think really entertaining are when people just get sort of incoherently angry, because I can understand vague frustration. There's a lot of places that can come from, and it doesn't take a lot to make people a little frustrated, but especially when there's a situation in which somebody's really sort of incoherently angry, like really upset, using various slurs or just tons of profanity, where I'm like, I don't know how the content that we made got you from whatever mood you were in before to here. But
okay, so you know what the ironic thing is about the whole thing? So we have no control over what ads show up. We just have control over whether ads are placed at different times in the video. And so what's interesting to me is those ads that actually interrupt the video and play something else, I believe those are worth more. So we get more out of those than the little thing at the bottom.
Yeah, but it also depends on how they watch it, because I think if you click skip ad right away for a lot of those ads, they also aren't worth as much.
That's true, I guess.
I think
but
you get almost no money actually if they click skip ad.
The potential, but they have to watch the first 5 seconds.
Yeah, but I think the way that the contracts work, that's the thing, is that we don't know exactly how the contracts work.
Right.
What the algorithm does is just try to determine how to make you the most money on average by displaying any given set of ads.
Well, but here's the thing. So if those people who are complaining and really have a hate on for us are getting more of those interrupting kind of ads, they're actually potentially worth more to us as a viewer monetarily.
Which is unfortunate, although we do appreciate viewers like ES tier, even if you're only getting pop-up ads. I think we do appreciate you per unit of watch time that you give us more than the people who are complaining.
For sure.
But to be fair,
it's always difficult, right? Like I'm not a native YouTube watcher like you are. I don't know what's a reasonable amount of ads. Like what? I don't watch it enough to get a real feel for what would really peeve me off.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I'm okay with sort of just whatever people do, and there are jokes about people who put a ton of ads in, and I think we definitely veer towards more ads as opposed to less ads. But the only feedback we get are from people who are really sort of upset in a way that we're not likely to listen to, because if you're that angry at that number of ads, I think it is unlikely that your anger is proportional or justified, and we can sort of just business as usual, I think is fair to maintain in those cases anyways. And if people who genuinely like this said, hey, this is cool, the number of ads is a little frustrating, I think we actually would be a lot more liable to sort of reduce the number of ads if we wanted, because at that point it's not really worth it. But we haven't actually gotten any of those comments from anybody who seems to actually be a fan.
In those comments, that what you're saying really is that it's not necessarily what you say, but how you say it that matters as a life lesson.
True. That's true. And I think what's interesting is that for commenters like people like Soul Reaper, anyways, who keep coming back and are obviously watching the video and commenting, it's like that's all engagement too, right? I mean, a comment is more engagement than a view is. So at the end of the day,
it
is. A comment is way more engagement from a view, because think about how many people you have that view your videos that never leave a comment. Comments, likes, and views are all different levels of engagement. They're all considered a different way, and I don't think we know exactly how to consider them in relation to each other, because that's just not how the algorithm works. It doesn't give you sort of usable like data for what you should be doing and what's more important. But a comment is definitely engagement. So if you're watching and commenting, that's way better than somebody just watching, and that's probably better than a couple people just watching and not commenting. So at the end of the day, I mean, it's not bad for us.
That's true.
Yeah. So there we go. Thank you for the comment. Our next one comes from Awesome Gamer 241. They say, "Hello there, just wanted to inform you that I finally managed to finish reading Replay by Ken Grimwood, which you recommended 6 months ago. It's probably one of the best books I've ever read, and I want to thank you for recommending it to me. Any other books that you would recommend that are similar to it? Thank you."
I love that comment.
Yeah, that's a really good comment, because I think that's like, that's really sort of validating for some of the stuff that we do, because we recommend stuff that we like a lot, and it's just sort of, you know, random shouts in the void, and we have no clue if anybody is going to actually read it or not. And we know generally that there are some people, you know, like Awesome Gamer 241, who may go out and check out some of the stuff we recommend, but it's really cool to have somebody check in. It's like a mini book club almost, right?
So a little bit of history then for the people who maybe haven't been watching us for so long. Back when we had the channel that was just unboxing, that was the original BDCKR channel, not BDCKR Gaming. And you remember, we didn't have any ads, we had no income from it, but we were getting actually a significant number of views, I think, because back then, Nerd Block was based very close to where we are, so we would be among the first wave of people getting their boxes in the mail. So because our opening videos were so low production, we could have them up like this, you know, within an hour or two after we filmed it.
Yeah. And so
we wanted to leverage it. Yeah.
At the end of every episode, the thing that we did is that we would recommend stuff that we thought was cool. So we would have our camera on our tripod, and then I would slide it off the tripod at the end of the video. We'd go to shaky cam where I would handhold it, and the quality would significantly decrease for the watching audience. We would then recommend something on the other end of the table from where we were filming stuff, and we'd have a little spread laid out. Most often something that you picked, but frequently something that you picked that I had also consumed and enjoyed and could sort of say a few words about. And we're like, hey, this is a cool thing that you should watch or read or listen to or, you know, check out.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the difference is I had the huge advantage of a lifetime of accumulating junk.
That's true, and I have the disadvantage of a lot of my content being on digital distribution platforms that I would recommend, so I can't exactly pull the tripod off and then slide over to the laptop open to Kurt's Gazette, right?
That's true. I do want to actually answer this question and maybe speak to it first. The thing is, Replay, there's not a lot of books like it.
Yeah.
In my mind, it's really rare to read a book like that. So it's not only a good story, but there's a really, it's not so much an uplifting message, but it's an uplifting perspective where at the end of it, I really felt like I was seeing the world in a whole new light.
Oh yeah, without giving too much spoilers, it contextualizes something pretty mundane as something really sort of new and fresh and exciting.
Yeah. So to me, all right, so the idea of book recommendation, it's very specific, and even though a lot of people might like the same book, they may not necessarily like the same thing about it.
Yeah, so I mean, I think for specifically Awesome Gamer 241, but then I think also maybe other people in the comments, because as you know, we like recommending things. If people want to talk about media that they like and why they like it, we probably actually can do our best to try to form some sort of opinion on what you might like as a recommendation. I think that's a service that we would be willing to at least potentially provide, where if somebody would want to leave a comment, we could make no promises to quality, or if we'd have the time to really go through properly and make too considered of an opinion, right? But if somebody was willing to take the time and comment that out, I'm sure we could maybe try to find something.
But all right, so because we've got this question, it's going to take a while. I'm going to take a stab at this one, because Jonathan Carroll does that whole fresh perspective kind of thing. Jonathan Carroll does that in almost all his books with magic realism. And out of all of Jonathan Carroll's books, my favorite is Sleeping in Flame, which is a bit about the so here's a cheater team with maxed out medals anyways. Because Sleeping in Flame was my first, and nobody writes quite like Jonathan Carroll does, where he does some really clever things, and because of the way the magic sneaks up on you, it gives me a little bit of that feeling where I think when I see something, when something happens, if I'm in the right mood, I can think, oh, I wonder if something, there's something there that I just don't see.
And I think there's another thing that you could have liked about it, which is one of the things that I still remember standing out to me, which is a really sort of interesting discussion of logistics, right? I think at various points in the book, there's a very sort of practical element to the magical realism that's taking place, right? Where like deciding how, like what he's going to do. Right?
You know what's like that? The
Jumper.
Martian by Andy Weir.
I was going to recommend the Jumper series. The Jumper series also has that same sort of feeling to me.
Oh, Stephen Gould.
Yeah,
they made that into movie.
Yeah, a not very good movie.
Because that book was absolutely, like, to me that was like the epitome, like the best kind of YA, young adult science fiction I've ever read.
Yeah, so I would say if that was the thing that appealed to you, where this really interesting thing happens, and then there's a sort of a lot of love and care, diverted to looking at how people would like work within this sort of new framework that they find themselves in. I think Jumper did that for me.
Yeah. Oh, and there's another thing about replay too. It does so what we've talked about is having a fresh perspective. We've talked about that sort of logical figuring out what you need to do and figuring out what you can do, like the parameters of the situation that you find yourself in.
And there's another book that actually falls under that same category, but I'm going to leave that till later because it's under another thing that I see you have in the notes here.
Okay, so the other part is there's certain books where you finish reading them, you are so moved that you have to take a while to let it sink in before you can go on to doing anything else. And I've got a few of those like that. Like Tegana by Guy Gavriel Kay. So Guy Gavriel Kay helped Christopher Tolkien edit the Silmarillion after J.R.R. Tolkien's death.
Yeah.
And he does these ridiculously good history. They're not historical fiction fantasy, but they're history-inspired fantasy. So it doesn't take much. You strip away the veneer of the fantasy part to figure out where he's taking his inspiration from. But what he does are these amazing, intricate stories, and these people that you just care about. But he does something with the plotting that it's hard to describe, but it's where different moments just come together. It's not like they're surprises, but they are kind of surprises that aren't really, they're not cheats or anything, because you can see them when they happen. You look back and say, oh yeah, I could see this coming. But there's these sort of transcendent moments where like the oh my god, I can't believe that happened. Because that's there's just something about Guy Gavriel Kay's books. But Tegana, again, it was my first one. I know that Lions of Al-Rassan is probably technically a better book, but I love Tegana, and I wholeheartedly recommend that.
Here's something interesting. I just had to. I confess that I've spent the last minute or two half listening to you because I had a recommendation that I was no longer sure with because of when I read it if it was problematic, and I wanted to check in real quick because I remember enjoying it while I was reading it. Flowers for Algernon also gave me a very similar feeling, and so I just spent the last little bit looking on a thread, seeing how people, because the way that it deals with intellectual disability, right?
Right, so there might be an ableist, because that's an older book.
Yeah,
and
it's
the problem with the older books.
Old.
Yeah, so when older books, they have a different sensibility, and they're of their time. So sometimes the suck fairy comes to it, and you go back to it, and you realize, ooh. Yeah. I sort of ignored a bunch of stuff that was not great.
Yeah, so I can say that I quite enjoyed it when I read it. It gave me a very similar feeling. I can say that several people here who in no way speak to the community of the intellectually disabled as a whole, or those living with intellectual disability, have said that they enjoyed the book and didn't find it problematic. And there's a quote here from the writer saying that I didn't want my readers to laugh at Charlie, maybe laugh with him but not at him.
That is so hard though. That riding that edge.
Yeah. So that's interesting. But
so not problematic.
maybe not problematic.
Okay.
I can't tell you with full confidence because this is a really brief skim. But I would say if just something that you need to maybe sit with for a while afterwards and something that moves you. Flowers for Algernon definitely did that to me. Although I think when I read it, I was also maybe like 14 or something, or younger. So I'm not 100% sure if that.
I think I might have been around the same age or a little bit younger when I read it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny story behind that is I went to a relatively crappy school as far as English went.
Yeah.
And you know how English, they pick a lot of books, like a lot of older books, because that's what the teachers know
Yeah.
to have the kids read.
Yeah.
And the older books at my school were not very good.
Mm-hmm.
So I happened to be taking this Saturday school. I'm not going to get into detail what I actually was supposed to go for, but during the Saturday school, at the breaks, I would go to their library and hide out, or I would look around the classroom, and that class was getting to read Flowers for Algernon. That was their English book.
Yeah.
So I was bored, and I read it, and it stuck with me. It was a brilliant book.
Yeah, it was a really good book, and as it turns out, maybe not problematic. Who knows? Potentially problematic. I will let people figure that out for themselves. I remember enjoying it, and that's all I can say. And I think I've sort of distanced myself enough from the actual content of the book that.
Yeah,
that
can you
I'm
hear
okay
the thunder?
with recommending it.
Can you hear the thunder? I can hear it pretty loud. No. Okay.
Maybe there has been a rumbling in the background.
Yeah,
definitely.
But you know what? I'm glad you thought of that, because I think the more I think about it, that sort of captures that kind of reevaluating your life kind of thing that Replay does really well.
Yeah, and Flowers for Algernon manages to deliver a gut punch with the title very late in the novel, which is a really interesting feat.
And unlike other books where they do that thing, because this is not a spoiler, but at the beginning, it's not really traditional grammar, English, whatever. And a lot of books that do that make it very difficult to read.
Yeah.
And if you bear with it just a little bit, it gets a lot easier. So for anybody who's thinking of reading it, Flowers for Algernon, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. So there we go. And then there's a sort of other category that's very similar in the just that it's more of a feeling than any specific content. But
okay.
You have in the notes here, maybe it's a feeling of OMG, I need to share this with someone.
Okay, so here's the thing. Like, there's sometimes it's just I'm gonna give you the book, and then I'm gonna try to explain what I was thinking of. So, Last Call, for example, by Tim Powers, he does these beautiful alternate history things.
Yeah.
But and I mean, technically not alternate histories. They're actually, what are they? They're more like suburban fantasy. I think
Like
called it suburban
histories.
hidden. That's right. Where he takes a known historical event or a series of events, and he fits this whole other story in it that has all this crazy stuff going on, and the parts that coincide with known history, that were documented history, it actually fits.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's sort of tangentially related to the book that I read recently called Song for Achilles, which is like sort of filling in various details about the story of Achilles and the siege of Troy. The Iliad is the source text for that.
So yeah, that kind of stuff where they do something and they make it interesting and they make it exciting, and even though you know what's going to happen to the bigger picture of the events in the world, like Tim Powers does that amazing. And Last Call was my favorite, again because it was my first one. Last Call, where poker played a huge part in it.
Yeah, and Last Call was a little bit dense, but quite good. And I think what was the Medusa's Web? Was that the
Yes.
Medusa's...
We reviewed that. We actually got a proof of that. We got an advanced reading copy.
Medusa's Web was a quite enjoyable book, and I think a little bit easier of a read too. So if anybody wants Tim Powers, but Last Call is a little bit intimidating, I think I would recommend Medusa's Web.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And another, I mean, a totally different thing, but see, my problem with books is I'm not a great reviewer because I feel things more. I remember more how I feel like when I read the book. And I remember having that same oh my god feeling when I was reading Name of the Wind by Pat Rothfuss.
And that was the book that I was talking about earlier, where it's people coming to terms with sort of like interesting systems. They're the systems of magic, and in Name of the Wind are quite interesting in the way that they go through them. I think is really sort of cool, where they exist in a sort of with a sort of set of internally consistent rules and limitations that make them feel a little bit more like a weird bonus extra science than just like otherworldly magic, sort of like less Harry Potter and more I haven't read it, but The Martian, right?
Yeah, and seriously, when you said that about thinking it through, I didn't make that connection. I didn't notice that about Replay or remember that about Replay, but as soon as you said it, I thought that's exactly what I liked about The Martian.
Yeah.
But all right, so this is what I mean about people can like books and like different things about them.
Mm-hmm.
There's that one moment in Name of the Wind where there's a bunch of different threads that you didn't necessarily know were connected. The moment that
you're talking about, because you've talked with me about this moment.
And they all reach a crescendo at the same point naturally.
Yeah.
And I look at that and I think, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my. Like, it was just, that kind of stuff is brilliant.
I think we can mention that it's a scene in the Aeolian.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's probably people either know that or won't know it, or that'll mean something to them if they choose to read it, which these are massive books. So if you choose to read Name of the Wind and The Secret Atmosphere, this is a large undertaking. If it took you 6 months for Replay, for whatever reason, just for time that you had, or whatever other considerations, Name of the Wind is going to take you a while.
Yeah, and the funny story behind that, I'm sure I must have mentioned this before, was because you were just young, you were little.
Yeah, I was
and
quite small.
We were going to the World Fantasy Convention, and they have guests, but they also have a lot of people attending who are in the industry, more so than almost any other convention like that.
Yeah.
And because the membership was limited, there was a good chance we'd meet a lot of these people. So even though none of the sort of events or panels were listed yet, I would routinely look through the membership list. And if I saw somebody, I would look up their books, I would read them, and then if I thought they were good and something that you would be interested in, I would recommend them to you.
And that was quite good, because you recommended me several authors that I quite liked.
Yeah, just thank goodness that the planning for the convention was more than a year ahead, that we had our memberships, because it took a lot of time. I mean, think about the lead time we would need for me to read it, find the time to read it, and then recommend it to you, and then you to read it.
Yeah, that was good. And I think Scott Lynch and Patrick Rothfuss were the two, and Tim Powers, I think also.
Yes, it was Tim Powers.
Were the three sort of big winners of that convention for me.
Yeah. And Scott Lynch couldn't make it because I think there was a big hurricane in New York at the time, so a lot of people didn't make it that were on the list. But I think Pat Rothfuss, Tim Powers, that would have been enough. I mean, Tim Powers, actually, you had a conversation with him.
Yeah, Tim Powers was quite nice, actually.
He even offered to mentor you if you had any aspirations towards writing fiction.
Yeah, to basically get in touch with him.
Yeah, which was I don't know.
Cool.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Like, ridiculously nice, I mean. Like, not bad, but it's just...
Yeah, so there we go. And I think... Oh, there's one more category here. You have another note.
Sometimes books aren't necessarily... You recognize maybe that they're not the best book, but they have something to say that hits you at the exact right moment. And if they get you at the right moment, then they never leave you.
Yeah.
And... and there could be any one of those other elements too, right? But sometimes it's just because it happens to be the right book at the right time.
Yeah.
And for me, that book was, there's a couple, but the one that's probably more famous that people would have heard about was Bridge to Terabithia by Catherine Patterson.
Quite good. Yeah.
And I ended up recommending that to you too.
Yeah, and I ended up reading it and quite enjoying it. And I think I had to read it again for class.
Oh, for school. That's funny. Like there were a couple books that you read before.
Yeah.
Like earlier that you ended up doing class, and that was one of them.
Yeah, Flowers for Algernon was also my grade 11 English class. One of the potential books that we could have done was Flowers for Algernon. And hilarious. I did Catcher in the Rye because my teacher said he thought it would appeal to me, and it did not. And I don't know whether or not I should feel a little offended for him thinking that it would.
See, this is me. My high school, I had to read Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah.
And I was, it was okay. It wasn't great. I would have been so much happier if I'd had to read Flowers for Algernon for school.
Yeah, I should have just read Flowers for Algernon again, it turns out. But yeah, there was different books that I could read. Brave New World, Portrait of Dorian Gray, Frankenstein, I think, was one of them. And the teacher specifically said, I think you would enjoy I think you would enjoy Catcher in the Rye. And I read it, and I was like, this is bad. I didn't, not bad, exactly. But
It was not for you.
You know what? I think I might actually stand by not very enjoyable. I think for me to have read. Yeah, so it definitely wasn't for me. Sort of looking at Holden Caulfield go around a place with very little money, call various people phony, was not really a particularly enjoyable read. And I was like, yeah, I get it, Holden. Everybody's phony.
And you're not.
And he is not. He is authentic, and he's got like a jacket that he likes or something. I don't see. I retained very little of that story.
Yeah.
But anyways, I guess, yeah, there's no real point to that. I read a book that I didn't like because the teacher told me I would like it, and that is why I can't trust. There you go. That's the moral of that story.
All right, so you know what? I'm gonna compile a list of all of those things because there's a few that I put in ahead of time, and there's a few that just spontaneously occurred to us, I think. So I'll put a list in the description for anybody who wants a reading list.
Yeah, I love that people take us up on our recommendations. I think we've seen that a couple of other times.
Well, that's what we thought the power of having a channel was, right?
Yeah. The thing that's coming to mind is talking with iProphet now about different podcasts that we both liked, and doing pseudo recommendations, because I absolutely adore podcasts.
And why not?
Yeah, so that's really cool. If anybody else wants recommendations for any type of media, or has recommendations for us, or anything like that, send them in the comments of this video. I think this is a good time to ask for that sort of stuff.
Yeah, if it's books, I can't promise that I'll read them, but because I've got a to be read pile that is literally dozens of books big. But I will, if it's already in my pile, it might just bump it up a little bit higher.
Yeah, and just for the future, anybody watching this video, whoever takes us up on one of our recommendations and enjoys it or doesn't enjoy it, letting us know is really cool. So again, a huge thank you to Awesome Gamer 241. I know you've been with us for a while, obviously, if you saw that recommendation, but seeing you in the comments popping up every once in a while, it's going to be extra sort of gratifying.
Yeah.
Now. So there we go. Our next question comes from Jose Mercado, or sorry, this isn't a question, this is a comment, as it were, and they say, the totem came twice because a lot of competitive people was active this season, and a lot of players couldn't get it.
So as much as I would like to, so this is a short answer, as much as I'd like to believe this, I mean, the implication, what's implied is that Warner Brothers is responsive in a large scale to the players, and I would love that. And I think there's a whole idea where people want to believe that kind of stuff, where things make sense and stuff happens for a reason. But the fact that Survivor was broken on Android for more than a year, affecting more people than would play multiplayer during any 1 week of Tantu Totem, I mean, that puts a lie to it, right?
So there we go.
That's my rant.
Yeah. Not too much to say. Wanted to include that comment. You know, we get comments from Jose Mercado on the semi-regular.
Yeah, enough to recognize the name.
Yeah, which is always cool. And this next name is also a name that I recognize, which is interesting. I think, you know, we've definitely formed a little bit more of what feels like a community, sort of, as these videos has gone on, and it's really interesting to see sort of people remember us and sort of refer back to stuff we've done a while ago, and also for us to like see people that we know. It's like, oh yeah, this person's back, right? And it
right.
feels like there's some sort of connection beyond that of just them watching us, or at least to me, that's how it feels.
Right. Yeah. Agreed.
There's a little bit of a reciprocal nature.
Oh, and this person taught us how to pronounce the name. It rhymes with fries.
Yeah, Stries. And so Stries says, how do you guys go about testing glitches? How many / which glitches do you test, and how often do you test? Also, do you guys actively try to find new glitches?
So I can say that with every update, for sure, we test every glitch before we do our recap. Yep.
And then during the week, we pay attention to the forums to see what might not be working in our comments. And when we try to test everything, we prioritize the ones that are most likely to change. I think one of the things that's important to note is that any glitch that can be done while fully offline can't really be patched the same way by them without an update, because it's something that's inherent in the game's code and not something that is like existing because of an interaction with a server or something. And theoretically, stuff like the challenge reset or anything that uses online has some interaction with online, and there's a chance that the thing that they need to do to patch it could be contained in could be contained in, or at least one of the sort of components necessary for the glitch to work could be separate from the actual game files on your device and could be, you know, somehow related to the servers. But that also is, you know, in general pretty unlikely at this point. A lot of the glitches have been around for a while, and it seems unlikely that they're going to be fixed like in between challenges, for example, right?
And that relies a lot on our understanding of how the game works.
Yeah.
Because
Because for stuff like the challenge reset, I think also that largely is not actually due to the interaction with the online servers, right?
Well, it has to do with what the Google Play save keeps.
It has to do with what the Google Play save keeps, but it also has to do with I think, with just removing your device from the internet at the right times, and I think that's the actual part that makes the challenge reset and not an issue that you're causing to happen on Warner Brothers servers.
Right. And so the more interesting question, or the more complicated question, is trying to find new glitches.
Yeah.
And it depends a lot. I mean, some of our biggest glitches were things that somebody shared part of it with us, and then we tested it out, and we figured out which parts of it were necessary. Because usually when glitches, the idea of a glitch is something happens that's not expected, and people try to reproduce the steps. And some of those steps are a bunch of hand waving that have no impact, and a bunch of the steps are necessary.
Yeah, I think there was one glitch that was a total BDCKR original that you like pieced together based off of a previous glitch that you weren't like, that you realized that there was probably another way that it would interact. You figured out something completely original. But I think the vast majority of the glitches have been in one way or another assisted by, or in some cases mostly given to us by a fan.
Yes.
Or somebody in the forum. And there's usually some community aspect. It's very rarely just us, and where we discover a glitch ourselves.
But it helps to have the understanding, because sometimes when a glitch fails, we can figure out what part of it is failing, what we need to maybe modify to make sure something that happens every once in a while happens every time. And then we just exploit the heck out of it.
So like recently, we haven't really, you know, when you say, are you actually trying to find new glitches, we aren't really actively trying to find new glitches as far as like discovering them ourselves.
Well, you can't really.
Yeah.
I mean, the only way you could do that is at the expense of actually playing.
And I don't even know what you'd go about doing. It would really be just doing like weird stuff. That would basically be like QA testing at that point.
Yeah, and that's actually work and not fun.
Yeah. If there's any background noise, it's because one of my roommates and one of their friends and my friend also are watching the season premiere of Game of Thrones, I think, next door. So if you hear any screaming, something really interesting has happened in Game of Thrones. I don't know if that got through on the mic, but I think something exciting just happened.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna wait either until the season is over before I start watching it, or I'm gonna wait until George R. R. Martin comes out with the follow-up to Winds of Winter.
Is that because this is the final season of Game of Thrones?
It is the final season of Game of Thrones. The book series is not done yet. It's not even close.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
Because that was, to me, when I first read Game of Thrones, that blew my mind. Like, that was in the late 90s, mid-90s. And, I mean, it's funny, the scale of what's popular as a book compared to what's popular as a TV show, the orders of magnitude bigger for TV shows.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so there you go. I just wanted to give you a little heads up if any of that got through on the audio. But we've got another comment here that I think was interesting, worth addressing. This one comes from Tropical Winter, and they say, just to let you know, 26 Canadian is $20 American.
All right, so this comment was really funny to me.
Yeah.
Because apparently $27 or $26.99 is also $20 American. Mm-hmm. It's all. I mean, clearly what's happening to me it's that a lot of the prices are built into the game.
Yeah.
And they just rotate them in and out, and so they don't put it all in at the same into the code of the game at the same time.
Yeah. Because $26. I when I saw this comment, I checked, and it was like $19.50 American.
Yeah. So, they're working with different exchange rates at different times. At the time that they put it in the code, they're just picking a number out of a hat and maybe rounding up or down.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, it's also cool because this is a useful service, right? To know what the conversion is. The reason that we don't do it is just that we're lazy.
That's
so
true.
We just want to put the number in. I mean,
Well, because we don't know. Even if we use like the currency converter, it doesn't tell us for sure. I mean, we can guess. Like the base price for most of these things is in American dollars.
Yeah.
And they just do an exchange into Canadian and then mess around with that.
Yeah, doing the currency conversion would tell us how much approximately it would be on this day in American dollars, but it would not actually tell us what the people in the American stores see for their cost.
Yeah.
So yeah, we could do a running tally of exactly how much American that would be if you changed your Google Play Store account to Canada, but used your American PayPal account. But I don't know how useful that would be, just from a practical standpoint.
Yeah.
But there we go.
I think that's it, and we're gonna play out this fight. I think this is the last fight.
Yeah. I do want to say that I have taken pictures of my cheat sheet with a standard credit card size thing, not an actual credit card because that would contain personal information for one side and a quarter for the other side. So I'm gonna send those along. I don't have access to the BDCKR Imgur account, so I know that's what you do when you were posting pictures. So I think maybe I'll send that along to you.
Or maybe we'll just stick it in the video.
That's true. Right at the end.
Yeah. Oh, there actually is one more fight. You want to do commentary on the fight?
Yeah, we have a couple minutes. We could do commentary on the fight. I think we should also.
And so we just finished it out because there's 4 ultimates.
Yeah, I think we should maybe take this opportunity to also thank patrons. Just
oh yeah,
we have a little more leeway here, but you can become a patron of us if you want. Patreon.com/BDCKR. Although it seems like it's pretty unlikely that this is going to be the video that convinces you. And if you watch the end of our videos, you probably have already gotten this spiel enough times that if you're going to do it, you would have done it already. That's fair. No personal judgment. Everybody's in a different situation, and some people might watch our videos and not want to give us money because I know that's how I feel about a lot of content creators that I watch, where I enjoy their stuff.
No judgment.
But I don't enjoy their stuff quite enough to give them money every month. And what makes that even more crazy is that there are actually people who watch our videos and have decided to give us money, because some of the people that I would not give money to make pretty objectively much better content than we do. So that's a huge, dubious but incredibly grateful thank you to Console Peasant and Eddy G, who are supporting us at the highest last word tier, iProphet, who is supporting us at the Your Message Here tier, and Shawn, Farrell, and Daniel Simonson, who are supporting us on the credited level, not to mention Laszlo Jurjadas and Chris Wolf on the gratitude tier. Thank you all so much. I don't always understand why you do it, but the fact that I don't understand why you do it just means that it's even more sort of spectacular that you guys think our stuff is that good. Yes. Or that valuable to you, and that's what makes it all the more special to have your support.
Agree with you 100%.
Yeah, and then there's also sort of the dubious listening audience who manages to get through our entire video, 52 minutes and 34 seconds is this one, give or take, which is an insane amount of time to spend listening to us. I don't think we're interesting enough to do that, but we really appreciate that. I feel like I'm selling a short here a little bit, maybe. I don't know if this is too much self-deprecation, but the point is that we quite appreciate all of you also for listening and engaging and sending comments and following up with stuff that we recommend you way in the past. These are all sort of really cool interactions to have with you guys, and we super appreciate them. So thank you all so much for all of your support in whatever form it takes. We will see you guys next time.
Komoda.